Brothers, sisters, salamu alaikum. Just before we get into today's discussion, I need to mention that this episode is brought to you by a restaurant, a burger joint very, very dear to us.
And these are no ordinary burgers, brothers and sisters. These are burgers from The Burger Firm. And if you've been following After Maghrib or Ahlul Bayt TV or even our personal pages over the holy month of Shahr Ramadan, you'll know that we have been eating these burgers non-stop.
If you live or you are visiting London, make sure to check out these guys, The Burger Firm. And it's an amazing, burger company, not just because they're friends of ours, but because they make serious, delicious food. Now, how you can find out about them, go on Instagram @burger.firm or visit their website www.theburgerfirm.com. And when you go on their website, Ahmed, tell them what they can do.
If you visit the website theburgerfirm.com and you order directly from the website using the coupon code AM10, you'll get a 10% discount on any order you make from the Burger Firm for collection. Make sure you do that now. Don't waste that time. Use this opportunity to have a nice meal while you're enjoying the episode. See you soon. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Brothers and sisters, welcome back to the After Maghrib podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since we've last seen you, so on behalf of the team, a belated Eid Mubarak to you all. We hope you had a blessed holy month of Shahr Ramadan and inshallah blessed Eid as well. Today, guys, we've got a really sensitive topic to get into. We're going to talk about influences on TikTok and Instagram. Are they a force for good or maybe not? Are there influences which actually we can learn from, or perhaps do even some influences endorse and encourage things like music, like swearing, and even some really controversial topics like temporary marriage, which is of the discussions we will get into today. So don't go anywhere. Fasten your seatbelts. This is going to be a crazy ride, inshallah, this discussion. And of course, if you're new to the podcast, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to the podcast. We're trying to get to that 5,000 mark as soon as possible. We can get there, but we need your support, inshallah. So, to get into this conversation, as always, Sayed Ali, assalamu alaikum. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
Eid Mubarak.
Mubarak to you too, and to your family.
And to you, Sayed.
Belated indeed. It's been 2-3 weeks now.
It feels like Ramadan was light years ago.
Yes.
How would you say kind of like the month was beneficial for you and you've learned and taken anything on board?
I found the month more beneficial being here, believe it or not.
Yani? As
being
in doing
on
the podcast.
Yeah.
Because you were on the podcast.
I was learning so much. It was like so intense, and
so many
up
amazing
close,
guests.
and we had blessed with so much people of ilm.
Yeah.
So we learned a lot, and
Honestly,
inshallah, we can take this on board.
Yeah, and to be honest, guys, if you've not like, for obviously there's so many podcasts and some of them are Ramadan specific, but a lot of them aren't really, and you can pick up anything from any of those podcasts. So you don't have to be waiting for Shahr Ramadan or in the month of Ramadan to listen to them. So if you haven't heard them, don't be shy, get into them.
Hit the subscribe button.
Yeah. Okay, Sayed, big discussion. Where should we start?
Big indeed. And I think before we even kick it off, I just want to put a disclaimer about my sore throat. So
Okay.
I sound like a frog at the moment to myself. So inshallah, people don't, put the volume down. But a real disclaimer I want to put is that please just have an open mind while we have this discussion. You spoke about, we want to talk about TikTokers, influencers, and you want to tell them what we want to reach? Eventually?
Yeah, I mean, the discussion will start there, and then inshallah we're going to phase towards talking about influencers who don't maybe give off the best vibes, and maybe don't do the right things on social media. So encouraging music, swearing, and also very open with the practice and the discussion of temporary marriage, also known as Mut'ah.
Yes.
And that's something which we're going to get into. Now, however you feel about it, we'll get there. So stay tuned. And also, of course, we have our dear producer, Sayyid Muslim Al-Husseini. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
How are you guys? Alhamdulillah. Alaikum salam.
Nice to see you.
Just got back from a trip in it, so still getting there.
Ziyara maqbula.
Alhamdulillah.
Did you pray for us?
Definitely.
Sayyid Ali, how many or what type of influencers or like TikTokers and Instagram kind of influencers do you follow?
Ooh, I follow a number of. I will never call them influencers, by the way. I will call them, inshallah, people of ilm, students of ilm, or those who give us the correct knowledge. And I follow a number of people, mainly scholars.
Right.
And I think it's fair I can share who two of my favorite ones are. If that's all right. One of them being is, of course, I think, a favorite of many, and that's Sayyid Jawad Ghazwini. You know, I've come across so much of his content over the last 2 years that I just don't want it to end. Because it's like a constant daily reminder of how we should be as Muslims, how we should treat everyone, you know, how we can make the most as a Muslim, especially here in the West. So he touches on topics that relate to all of us. And another one I would mention is Sayyid Mahdi Mudarrisi, and that's because his short clips that he shares are not just those that matter to us now, they matter to our aqidah, they matter to our Islamic history, and they touch about on everything.
I was going to say not just Islamic history, but there's obviously so many different lessons we can learn and things which are not even Islamic. So for example, how you deal with people in business, you know, how you look after your body and how you look after your relationships with people around you. Those kind of things are not specific to religion. So I know, for example, say Jawad, as you mentioned, he's got celebrities following you, you know, of all different types and backgrounds and people you wouldn't expect who can benefit. And that's,
you know, there's actually one more person I have to mention. Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hilli.
Yeah, mashallah.
He's got some amazing content that comes out, mashallah.
And to be honest, say there's influencers who are not in the Islamic field either, but might be from our community. So influencers, I'm not going to name names because we've got so many, maybe say mashallah, I can name some, but we have people who are in business, we've got people who are in health, people who are like reciters like yourself and others as well, but people who can advance you and support you.
Ahmed, give us your favorite one.
Who's my favorite?
Yeah,
I think it varies. Like I follow probably like 50 pages.
How do you keep up?
A lot of them are Liverpool fan pages. I'm not gonna lie. No, but no, I mean at the moment, at this point in time, I would say my friend Zohaib Sharif, Akti Zed, he's fantastic. I know who's on Instagram, check him out, acti.z.
What's he do?
He's like so his day job is in health and fitness and that kind of thing.
So fitness.
And yeah, but it's highly motivational. A lot of it is fitness related, but mindset wise, he's incredible. And there's so many others. I don't want to get into it too much. But
what about you, Sayed Ali? Just Islamic influences, nothing
honestly,
else.
just Islamic. Any other influence to me is taking me to hellfire.
No,
honestly,
stop.
Honestly.
You need some nutrition advice or something at least.
There's a sister called Sukaina Nutrition who's very good. She's also come on Has Been TV before, and she's from our community as well. She's fantastic. There's so many dietitians.
A community favorite is Muhammad Tahir Motivate.
Yeah, Moti, he's a good friend of ours. Of course. Yeah.
He took my dream job working at Heathrow.
Yeah. But check these guys out if you haven't already, guys. But what makes someone a good influence? On TikTok or on Instagram, for example.
You know, I think before we even say what makes someone a good influence to us as Muslims, especially here living in the West, I think it's first we got to discuss the chaos that's online.
Right.
Because, you know, we can all say, you know, this person's good, that person, we can promote this person, we can say this person is better than that person, we can learn from this guy. But then the issue is there is no one out there fact checking these people. There's no one out there, you know, seeing if what they're saying is correct. So if you open up the app TikTok, for example, I don't know how your algorithm works. That's compared to when I first started, I was scared to open the app. I've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
But now, alhamdulillah, like TikTok sort of knows I'm a Muslim.
Halal. Yeah.
Majority halal, but half of the Islamic content that comes across my face is nonsense. Number one is misleading. Number two is people, they will mention like a hadith, and you want to go look for that source, bro, it doesn't exist. Or they want to mention a verse, they say it only in English. Sometimes I'm part of the problem as well. They're saying only in English, but then when you want to go and find the actual translation, bro, it's half of the translation does not make sense to what they're saying. And that's in terms of what I've been like, you know, shoved down my eyes, down my throat on the app. But there are other apps. There's like Twitter, where mashallah we have everyone as a sheikh on Twitter these days.
Honestly.
And then you have you know, other platforms where I'm not going to promote because it's just chaos. Chaos. So you know, when we have someone who says I'm a Muslim influencer, and these are people who, because we have that connection, the moment we see, for example, they've got a beard, the moment we see, for example, they've started Salamu Alaikum, you know, that positive, energetic Salamu Alaikum, automatically we've sort of, you know, they've got our attention.
Okay, so a lot of people will listen to this and be like, that applies to you too.
Maybe on the podcast.
But I think you are Muslim influencers though. The problem is sometimes you've got influencers online who are representing us badly.
Yeah.
but they don't categorize themselves. But the viewers do. They want to know: are you Muslim? Are you Iraqi?
This is what I want to come to, because
they want to put them in a category, and then they end up representing us, although they didn't want to in the first place.
Oh, I see what you mean.
This is what I want to come to, because this is why I'm saying, you know, everyone these days is a Muslim influencer, because even those who don't choose to be a Muslim influencer end up being a Muslim.
Yeah, but in regards to After Maghrib, for example, firstly, I want to make clear that as a thing, we're different, because we obviously work with the channel, and
Categorically, we're Muslim.
yeah, as in we are outwardly producing Muslim content, right? So we're outwardly producing content in short form and long form for people to benefit from. The difference is we're not shuyukh, we're not scholars, or I, especially myself, I'm not qualified.
We don't claim to be.
Yeah, in the sense that we try and engage with people and direct them towards the right source of knowledge, you know. And sorry, Sayed, I'm just going to add, if you don't mind, very quickly. And a lot of the time we fact check behind the scenes. I have to make this abundantly clear, and I'm sure this will apply later in the conversation, because we actually have a message from a dear scholar as well to show us. And we review all of our stuff. We try to be as careful as possible. Obviously, we talk a lot on this podcast, me especially, but you know, we try our best, Yani. So, you know, and I have to say, because we had so many people send in messages. We asked, who's your favorite influencer? We probably got like 100+ responses. A lot of them, I have no idea who they are.
I've never heard them.
But there's even, for example, artists. Adil Abadi, for example, in the US, is fantastic. Sadiqa Juma, auntie in the UK, she's great. She did a partnership with John Lewis over the weekend last week. Even, for example, restaurants, Burger Firm, they're new in London. They're amazing. And their burgers are like
delicious.
You know, in Ramadan, Shahr Ramadan, we discovered Burger Firm on Instagram, and they recently launched. For 4 nights in a row, we had Burger Firm iftar.
I saw all your stories.
Yeah. I've never in my life done that. But I looked at the menu, and I remember I was at work.
Yeah.
I was showing the boys in my office. I was like, guys, look at this menu. And they're all different backgrounds, different ages. I'm like, which one should we get tonight? So we all had like disagreements, different items on the menu. Danny Dorito, there's Top G, there's so many others, and everyone had a different opinion. But alhamdulillah, whenever we had it, we got to try something new.
Just about Burger Firm, you know, during Ramadan, I think After Maghrib, shared a post of them.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
So now somehow, you know, I'm associated with After Maghrib.
Yeah,
so
and guys,
all my messages now became, what was this place? Who runs this place?
With Burger Firm.
Where can we, about Burger Firm, you know, where can I order this? So I was sending everyone the details. And next thing you know, everyone's like, either the next day or following few hours, they're sending images of them actually eating the food. Yeah. I'm like, Baba, I've promoted Burger Firm, and I still didn't have the opportunity during Ramadan. But alhamdulillah, now we've tasted the treasure.
We loved it. Say Mujtaba, the code, of course, as a gift to everyone at home. We alhamdulillah, and thanks to Burger Firm for allowing us to work with them. Say Mujtaba, what's the code, and how
if you're gonna order online on theburgerfirm.com, you can use AM10 to get 10% discount on collection.
AM10, 10% discount on all.
They're in Northwest London at the moment, but hopefully they'll expand soon.
Okay, anyway.
And AM stands for After Maghrib.
Yeah.
Just to clarify. Speaking about After Maghrib, if I can go back to your point before I interjected, I was like, someone asked me, you know what, if you are having these conversations and it's a Muslim platform, and you keep, because someone told me, you keep having a conversation, you keep saying, you're not Sayyid, you're not Sheikh. You know, you keep putting out these disclaimers. And I was like, there's a difference. When a sheikh goes out and tells you to do something or tells you to refrain from something, he has studied that subject in depth.
Yeah.
He's a student of Hawza. He's talib al-ilm, and he knows what he's talking about. The only thing we can do here on this platform is to pretty much, inshallah, show you right from wrong. Not halal and haram. With that, we can do our best.
Or at least what we understand
when it comes to that. But inshallah, right and wrong. And we don't want to do anything beyond what our capacity is.
And the thing is, you know, when we talk about these influences, and you mentioned chaos online, there's a lot of it. Okay, so for example, there are influences out there, and I don't know if we're going to get into specifics and individuals, but people who are just so influential now within our community that they will go out and they'll be flocked by youth. Whether or not they're Shia, you know, they'll have a following outside of the Shia community, and they'll be doing things, for example, which are not befitting, in my humble opinion, of the followers of Ali Muhammad, alayhim as-salam. And so, for example, these characters need to be monitored. They need to be, or either they need to openly associate with Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, and then emulate and embody what they are expected to be and to do, or they don't. They disassociate and they do what they need to do, but don't mix the two. And for example, if it's wrong if I, as an individual Ahmed, I quote hadith of Ali Muhammad alayhi salam, and then at the same time I'm posting grime and drill music on my story and I'm singing along with it, for example. It doesn't make sense. Or if I'm swearing and then at the same time I'm like, you're giving a hadith about using the good speech and tongue. Do you know what I mean? It's counter logical. It doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, since we're talking about TikTok, and see, TikTok is full of nonsense. Like if you don't have TikTok, I don't advise you to open up an account unless you want to follow After Maghrib. Let me just make that clear. But the moment you open TikTok and you come across this content, and I want to stick to Islamic content only, because if we're talking about Muslim influences, technically they fall under the influence of the category of Islamic content. And as soon as you open those videos and as soon as you open up those comments, that comment section, 99% of the time is just people free mixing.
Yeah.
Like if you actually look at it, someone may come out and do good work. Look, we don't doubt or question anyone's intention when it comes to Islamic content. But sometimes the things that they release lead to free mixing on the content that they're producing. And so I don't want to mention names of specific people or accounts because I don't want people to search these accounts in case they've never come across them. And half the time, like you're looking at the comments, bro, you're like, hey, I know that guy. Or for example, that name is so familiar. If your mom or dad saw what you commented now on this post, Allahu Akbar. Like it's so shocking how people are comfortable being who they say they not are online. So you have these two different, faces when it comes to, for example, how we are as Muslims on a platform where we think no one's watching us. They forget Allah's watching ultimately. Allah's watching everything we comment, everything we like, everything we scroll, everything we rewind, everything that we do. And the main thing for me is you have to sort of not take TikTok and similar apps as gospel.
Yeah.
If you are trying to find inspiration, look, there's so much inspirational content on TikTok. I'll be honest. There is so much beautiful Quran recitations that inspire me. Or there are so much, for example, people who give, content about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his sunnah and his life and how he lived the way he lived. These things, bro, they make my heart stronger in faith.
They bring you closer to Allah.
At the same time, there's also, for example, so many converts on the platform where they share their convert story or they share their struggle or they share their journey into finding Islam. Bro, these things are amazing. And I love seeing that content. But then we have this content where I think here is where it gets dangerous, is that there is this thing of Muslim trends. I don't know if you've come across any, Ahmed. And there are also, in particular, Shia trends, where people, I think the term is called thirst trap.
Okay.
So they will thirst trap a latmiyah. They will thirst trap a scholar. They will thirst trap anything for attention. And
what does that mean? Forgive me, I don't know. About it.
Thirst trap, maybe the producer will know better than me, but that's when someone is craving some attention.
Right.
And they will use Islamic means
as a means to get it.
I think there's TikTok is quite vast with these things. So there's a lot of these weird troll accounts that are there to troll the Shia community. But at the same time, there's
I'm not discussing fake accounts. I'm talking about real life people.
So this is what I was going into.
Okay.
It gets to a point where people there's a lot of these trendy latmiyas which pick up a lot of views.
Okay.
But the problem is they only pick up views when you're
thirst trapping. Let's be honest, we call it what it is.
But I think a lot of it's how you portray it, because some people do it really badly where they're maybe like swinging Dhul Faqar or they have makeup on, whatever. It looks really bad. But at the same time, then there's people who's just romanticizing religion. They're posting photos in Bain al-Haramain.
Have you seen these things? Sorry to interrupt you, but have you seen these things on TikTok where you have these guys, they're wearing like the skinniest, tiniest vest, and you have the massivest guy you can imagine, bodybuilder, yani, and they're doing weights, they're showing off, they show them get out of the shower and getting ready and like in the gym and everything. And
then they've got Safra ilallah.
Yeah, they have a track like that in the background, and then they have a caption be like, I'm preparing to become a soldier of Imam.
Hey, but Ahmed, I don't think it's not necessarily bad, but it's just Sometimes a lot of people go over the top.
It's inappropriate.
They get. So if you're showing your fitness videos with the latmiya, then okay, it's nice. Or if you're showing your trip to Karbala, then it's nice.
Of course.
But people get over the top with it. They get excited, and that's where it goes wrong.
Obviously, you've got to stick to like the do's and the don'ts of religion.
Yes, 100%.
Hijab, yani, like for a guy or for a girl. If you're a guy, why are you showing off your body? If you're a girl, why are you showing off your body on TikTok? It's not important.
But even if you are showing it off, it goes to a problem where you're showing your Shia. Yes. And you're a female or you're male, so you're attracting views from the opposite attention.
Yeah, and it's the community which is you're trying to engage with, like, because people at the end of the day will crave that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they want people of a similar ilk to want them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want people to see I'm marriage material, or that I'm a good-looking guy and my beard's this and that, and do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to have some like nuance when you enter this space. Do you know what I mean? Or this like place, because that platform, like you're saying, is dangerous, man. It's really dangerous. You could be completely innocent on TikTok and still come across nonsense, you know? I know someone who told me, like an adult, who told me that they use TikTok to watch life hacks, you know, cleaning hacks, cooking hacks. For those who don't know, like shortcuts and loopholes to clean and cook and do housework better. This adult told me, he goes, I was using it, but then I was scrolling and all this bakwas, yani, like rubbish will come onto my feed. I don't want to see it. So, like, for me personally, I remember people would advise me for years, don't get TikTok. I only opened a TikTok account for After Maghrib, just so I could follow the page and I could, you know, just keep an eye on it. But for me, even I don't open TikTok ever. I probably open it once a month to check our account. And alhamdulillah, even like Instagram Explore, like, you know, it's not really.
You know, I've never used Instagram Explore since I think 2019 or something.
But anyway, Sid, sorry, I want to kind of like divert, because you were making a good point about these kind of toxic traits you see online.
If I could come back to this word that I use, thirst trap. I don't want to upset anyone. I know there's probably half of you probably part of doing the same thing, and I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about those individuals. You know, you have certain people. If you see their video after video and the way they create their content on that account, it's thirst trap. Because they will use, for example, the sword of Dhul Faqar, Imam Ali, with some provocative actions and you know, provocative looks and the ways they move, with a very latmiya that we can all connect with, Noha, for those who don't know what latmiya is, and they're bringing comments, for example, mashallah, sister, you are beautiful Shia Muslim. Bro, you read these comments and those sisters are replying back to the brothers, thank you so much, it means a lot, Ya Ali. Like, these are the conversations that are happening on TikTok, and this is what I mean by thirst trapping. I'm not talking about those people who are sharing, you know, their ziyarah. I love that, bro. I'm in love with, I've shared a few myself of doing something similar, but there's a complete difference between, for example, you being modest online and you being breaking every Islamic law possible when it comes to
let's kind of divert this, if you don't mind saying,
go on.
to this conversation on temporary marriage. All right. So the reason why we're discussing this is because we've been seeing different accounts and different people discuss or engage or partake in Mut'ah on TikTok. All right, for example. So people who will like do a live ceremony or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the word is. Like, you know, they'll do it on TikTok or they'll talk about it, and it becomes normalized to the point where everyone is talking about it, and it becomes, in my opinion, an issue. All right. Now, there's different avenues to this. Before we get into this, guys, my humble opinion is just to suggest that, firstly, we are not scholars. We are not shuyukh. We are not imams of any kind. So everything you discuss with us on this conversation, please refer back to your Marje. What does he say on this? What does your local imam in your mosque say? And refer to people of knowledge and people who have studied this, because we're not here to give ahkam on do's and don'ts. That's not our position. What we are here to do, in my opinion, is to inform you of matters that we've seen which are causing disruption amongst our youth. So it's really important that we discuss that, okay? The second thing I want to do, if you don't mind saying in terms of disclaimer, is just to understand that there's a lot of people watching, and I want everyone, inshallah, to respect all viewers. We have followers of on our account of different backgrounds, different cultures, different gender, you know, male and female, both are watching, young and old, both are watching, different parts of the world, and everyone has been raised in a different environment. Some people will be very in favor of mut'ah, some will not. And, you know, you could argue either side of it. And Islam does not, you know, we can get into, you know, the what do you call it? The details, but we cannot categorically say it's for the better or for the worse, you know, but just I wanted to say that before we get into it.
Yeah, no, it's very valid that you say that, Ahmed. And I think if I can just add something onto this sensitive subject, is that a mut'ah marriage, temporary marriage, sigha marriage, however people refer to it, is that it's not the norm of society. It's not the norm of this religion, and it's definitely not the norm of the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhi wasallam. We follow the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he says, if you want to follow my sunnah, then get married. And the married he's referring to is the permanent marriage. So I just think that's something that we need to, inshallah, put out there before we start this discussion. Okay. And you mentioned that there are TikTokers out there who are openly doing mut'ah ceremonies. I don't know if we can call it that.
Yeah.
But we do have people within our community. Okay? When I say this, within the Shia community, on the TikTok platform, where they're coming out outright for the last 2-3 years, God knows for how long. I've seen maybe every other day. Sometimes it's the same individual themselves. Wherever they go, there is a mut'ah session happening where he can go to anyone in the street. Let's do mut'ah, and they do mut'ah, and they go, and bro, this is all live. And then the problem is, those who don't understand what temporary marriage is, even though what's happening in that TikTok is so questionable, I'll be honest, okay? You've opened the can of worms where people think all we have in our amazing faith, in our amazing madhab, is temporary marriage.
Right.
Like we have nothing else
to celebrate.
Nothing else to celebrate or be proud of, or, you know, we can say we can associate ourselves to the teaching of Islam apart from this. And the worst thing about these influences, when they are doing these actions, Ahmed, okay, there is something that's happening out there, is that they're not talking about just you when they want to tell you what you're doing is wrong. Now they've got people where they would go on all Shia accounts and call someone who's got nothing to do with what you are doing, and they're calling him what? The son of Narjis, the son of Zina, the son of Mut'ah. Can you see what that can of worms?
You meant Narjis?
Narjis.
Okay.
The mother of Imam Mahdi.
Well, I don't even want to know.
So someone who is doing these things, bro, is affecting the Shia community on a huge scale.
Yeah.
Huge scale.
A few things to mention on this, because obviously there's so many things to talk about. Mut'ah,
yes, as
a theory and as a practice is, in my opinion, is two different things.
Okay.
Theoretically and historically, Islamically, there's a basis for it. Sunni and Shia accept that it was introduced at the time of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's hadith in both the books of the Shia and the Sunni. There's a chapter in Sahih Muslim called the chapter of Mut'ah. So it's accepted at the time the Holy Prophet it was introduced. It was accepted, obviously with context and in circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, it was disbanded and removed by Umar, the second caliph, and then thereafter as well. Okay. Now, that's the historical basis. I'm sure there's maybe more you want to add to that, maybe not. But in practice, today, in this day and age, a lot of the time, it's abused, completely abused. And there's a lot of vulnerable people out there who have suffered as a result of it, who have been a victim of it, and maybe who were misled, who were taken or swayed into the wrong direction. Most of the time, if I'm going to be really honest, by a really conniving or a deceiving male, manipulative male, who's done that, okay? And a lot of the time we have to be really honest. The guys out there who are abusing this, please think twice. And those out there who are normalizing it, you need to think more than twice, because at the end of the day, this is something which is affecting a community, a generation of Western Shia, particularly Western Shia Muslims who are born and brought up. Imagine your sisters, your mothers, your daughters. I know it's very cliche, but people can get emotionally and psychologically scarred in this day and age. We don't want to talk about physically, because that's a whole nother discussion. But people get scarred to the point where it affects their life, their relationships for years and years and years to come. Some people are so put off by the faith itself that they will turn away from it. So you have to be very conscious and cautious when talking about it.
Indeed,
you know what I mean?
Indeed. And you know, just before you mentioned the abuse of temporary marriage, you mentioned, for example, it was accepted unanimously by all Muslims at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah.
And then we know, for example, the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, came and prohibited. He stopped it, and he put an end to this temporary marriage. But I want to make something clear, because a lot of Muslims around the world, they attack the Shia for this. They say, for example, Umar made it haram. So if anyone comes now to practice temporary marriage with what's right about it, if anyone wants to practice Mut'ah marriage, then we all kuffar, and we are going against Rasulullah. I do want to mention one thing. And I think it's only fair that I counter that point.
Right.
Being a Shia podcast, we need to understand that as Shia, as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt themselves, starting from Rasulullah to the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Imam al-Mahdi, may Allah hasten his reappearance, not one of them, and not any of our jurists dared to go against Rasulullah saying and to go against the verse in the Quran that touches on this. Because for us, the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, halal Muhammad is halal until the day of judgment. Okay? No one can come and say, for example, this is now haram. So the fact, for example, Umar ibn al-Khattab made it haram, there's no hujjah upon us. As the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, we take our hujjah or our prohibition or our whatever it is from Muhammad and Ali Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihim ajma'in. No one else. But the fact, just because it's permissible, and going back to this abuse system, look, everything that is haram is proven to be bad for us. If not for us, for society as a whole.
Right.
But everything that is halal doesn't mean it's good for you. So, and Mut'ah marriage, when it came down, you mentioned there was a pretext and there was a context and there was a reasoning behind why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowed this for certain scenarios, certain events such as wars and expeditions, etc. But he didn't come out and make it the norm. He didn't say, every Tom, Dick and Harry can now go to temporary marriage. So we have to understand that, as men, we all have sisters. We all have, inshallah, one day, daughters. We all have nieces. So it's a sensitive topic, not just for the sisters, because I know the sisters, may Allah bless all of them, they have a huge issue with temporary marriage because they see men abusing the system. And as men, we need to say, if you are abusing this, please stop. Wallah, you are damaging families.
Yes.
I swear to God, I know of an individual who has suffered so much because of this. Okay, this is a sister. So they have someone who is their spouse, and they're going around left, right, and center because it's halal for them. They have ruined the life of this sister. They don't understand that when you go and say, for example, it's my God-given right, wallah, you are damaging her so badly. You are emotionally hurting her, sometimes even physically, because when you're going around everywhere, bro, you're going to come back and give, there's more than just mental health issues that can occur from the abuse. And there is one thing I want to mention, which I'm not comfortable to say, but I do want to say it. If you are a scholar, and because there are cases where sisters have reached out to scholars where they want advice, or they want, for example, to find a spouse, or they want, for example, to understand what's halal, what's haram, and everything. You have these scholars, not all of them, there are a few, okay? And I respect every scholar, but when you yourself abuse this, you are taking these sisters away from Islam completely. There are so much sisters out there who have given up on faith completely. They've given up in the hope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal, because scholars abuse the system. I'll give you an example, Ahmed.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to mention this and say it as it is. There was a sister who went to a scholar to say, I am seeking marriage. She's divorced. What did the scholar do? Have a guess.
What? I think I know where this is going.
He said, do temporary marriage with me.
Yeah.
You understand? So when you are in this position, when you have a prominent position, they have trust coming to you.
And it's not just, sorry, Sayed, I'm going to interrupt you.
Go on.
It's not a rare occasion. Like, you hear these things a lot. But I have to make clear that, firstly, not every guy is like this.
No, of course not.
You get the good and bad in both men and women.
It starts at the top, Ahmed.
Sorry?
It starts at the top.
Yeah, of course. It has to start at the top. People have set examples. And, like, at the top, you might have a scholar in a mosque, but the same way you have an influencer online who has, in many occasions, way, way, way more influence than a lot of our scholars do today, unfortunately. So you'll have, for example, people who are TikTokers or singers or whatever it might be, or just random comedians online who endorse it, talk about it, engage in it even.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, it normalizes this issue to the point where guys who are 15, 16, 17, 18, even younger at times, are becoming aware of it firstly, and then thinking, oh, it's normalized, it's fine. This guy does it, that guy does it, this guy I look up to does it, therefore I can do it. They'll look for a girl and they'll ask her to do it with him. You know what I mean?
And the problem with this, Ahmed, is that, you know, when I say it starts at the top, I'm not even talking about, for example, some scholars abusing it. I'm talking about those at the top. They're just telling the youth, for example, this is an avenue for you that you can take.
Yes.
You live in the West, you know, you go to university, don't fall into haram, you can take this route. But they're not telling them there are terms and conditions. There's the baggage that can come with this.
Of course. And like you said, Sayed, if something is halal, doesn't make it wajib.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it's allowed, doesn't make it good for you.
Yeah.
And the same way, if something is forbidden, it's forbidden because it's bad for you. You know, it's interesting to note, for example, someone mentioned this analogy to me in the conversation and in the context of Mut'ah. For example, you go to a pharmacy, let's say you've got a common cold or a headache.
Yeah.
You go to a pharmacy, you're not going to ask them to give you antibiotics or drugs, medicines, you know.
You're going to explain the problem.
You're going to ask them what is suitable for me at this time.
Yeah.
And they'll say, here's a paracetamol. You're not going to take something or engage in something when it's not a suitable time and place for it.
Yeah.
In the same way with this, there's many ways, and I have to mention this openly, especially for the men, the young men. There's many ways to control yourselves sexually, and there's many ways to control yourselves hormonally and all of that stuff until the point where you become ready to marry, you know? And I'm not saying in all cases it works. I'm not saying it works indefinitely, because obviously there's a lot of guys who are not married at the age of 25, 30, 35, even later, right? But what I am saying is that do not give up so easily and do not give in. You know, there's context where it might be helpful and there's context where it might be the right thing to do, but don't abuse it like you're saying, Sid. I'm just, on this note, if you don't mind, Sayyidina, I'm going to play a message from our dear respected Sheikh Noor Muhammad. For those who don't know, Sheikh Noor, of course, is a great friend of myself and Sayed Ali and of After Maghrib and Ahlul Bayt TV. He has supported us since day one. Alhamdulillah, he watches a lot of our content and even reviews a lot of our content, including this podcast as well. Sheikh Noor wanted to be here for this discussion. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. But he did send me a very short message to play to everyone at home. And if you don't mind, I'm going to play this on behalf of the Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Thank you so much, Brother Ahmed and Sayyid, for an amazing discussion. It is indeed a very important discussion. Yes, it is allowed. But the fact that it is allowed doesn't necessarily suggest that anyone is free to go for it just for the sake of going for it. Some conditions and barometers must be met. And the last thing Islam expects from each and every one of us is to abuse and take advantage of its laws. So we need to be careful how we go about practicing and implementing some of these laws. I wish you all the best. Keep up the good work. Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam. Sheikh Noor.
Habibi Sheikhna.
Amazing input to the discussion. And he said it beautifully that, you know, he was reminding the men do not abuse and take advantage of its laws. It's a similar point we made earlier that, you know, just because it's halal doesn't mean it's good for you.
Doesn't make it good. It doesn't always, in every case, make it the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, let me ask you another question, and maybe inshallah we'll start to
Ahmed, before you move on,
I
feel like you guys have really pushed it towards that. People shouldn't go for it as whenever they want. But what if there are situations that people do need to use Mut'ah or use temporary marriage?
Because it's only fair that we mention when it's good for you.
Because there's wisdom in temporary marriage, and there's a lot of situations but
we have to remember that the only ground that I'm aware of, or probably that most of us are aware of, is that it was used in the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and the Ahlul Bayt of Islam in times where there was extreme length of period where a man was away from his wife. For example, in Sahih Muslim, of course, the books of our brothers. It talks about Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, as well as other companions of the Holy Prophet who were out on expedition with him. And Jabir approached the Prophet and said, look, what is the solution? I'm in need. I have the urge, whatever. My wife is not here. And the Holy Prophet replied to him and he said, look, you can't do anything. You can't please yourself and you can't do zina. But what you can do is mut'ah, temporary marriage. And these are the conditions that you must adhere to. Now, that's the only basis that in my knowledge that we're aware of where it can be done. So when you say about, oh, what about the context where it needs to be done? It's very hard for us even to judge.
You can't just go and do temporary marriage with whoever you please.
No, it's not a free for all.
Hey,
it's not free for all.
There's rules to who can do it and who can't, for example.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And you know, the rules between a male and female even differ.
Yeah.
So a female has her own ahkam, and the guy has his own ahkam with this.
Yes, of course.
And you know, just like permanent marriage has got adda period, it's got, for example, seeking permission from your father. There is so much that goes into it. It's not just like, let me just go do temporary marriage. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There is so much ruling.
Unfortunately, I think that's how it's been portrayed.
And honestly, guys,
by influencers online.
Yeah. Because they make it look like it's that easy.
A lot of people find that the hassle and the risks that come with temporary marriage are not worth the time. It's better to find someone to marry young. We've talked time and time again on this podcast about the benefits of marrying permanently and marrying young. It's hard as heck. You know, a lot of us, you said you married very young. I married relatively young. Inshallah, say Mustafa, may Allah find you a noble, bless you with a noble wife. Ameen. But, you know, inshallah, you know, that helps people, right? And a lot of the time it's, you save yourself so much hassle, politics, ghiba, like all of these things that could come with that. It's not worth it. You know, you might be young, but it's not worth it in the future.
There was once a gathering where a bunch of us shabab, and a bunch of boys, I can't remember how old I was. It's possibly, I think I was probably 18, 19. I have no idea now. Many years ago, I'm 30 now. So a long time ago. But I can still remember this in the back of my head. And the Sayyid that we were having this discussion with is someone very dear to me. And normally, you know, sometimes like after majalis, or for example, after 30 days Muharram, 30 days Ramadan, 10 nights Muharram, normally there's a gathering with scholars where they sit with the youth. I don't know if you've come across that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And sometimes like 5 out of 10 questions that they ask the sheikh comes to this subject.
Really, yeah.
And I remember this person was like, for example, and he instilled it in all of us, where he was like, Mut'ah marriage is not the norm. It's not there for a thing. And he explained it so beautifully, where he was like, if ever one should even think of taking that route, it's like a safety net for them. Because, you know, the Quran tells you, for example, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. You know, don't even come close to fornication. Yani, if you find yourself as a young man, this is the advice he was given. If you find yourself as a young man, remember we were like 18, 19, 20, some of us were like 22, 23 at the time. So many of us are, for example, every day surrounded by the shahwat of this world, you know, the pleasures of this dunya, if we can call it that, the translation to it. Where, for example, we could be at university, where we are mixing with the opposite gender, left, right, and center for the last 2-3 years. For example, you know, all the surroundings and environments we're in, we're not at home, you know, we're studying, we're far away from home, and we're far away from local communities, and we're far away from other Muslims, but we're only surrounded by seeing people who immerse themselves in this world of, for example, dating, going to the pub, going clubbing, all of this. So this can affect that young man, you know, where it can feed into his desire of, for example, seeking pleasure, we can say. But he reinforced in us to say it, and he was like, this is not the norm, and temporary marriage should only be considered in the times where you feel like you may go and fall into the trap of fornication. Even that, he explained the laws to us. And if people want to know what the ahkam are, for example, if you ever wanted to understand the whole idea of temporary marriage, its use, what's right, what's permissible, what's not permissible, please refer to your Marje, not to me here.
Of course.
But ultimately, he was saying, Habibi, bro, if you have the urge, call your mom, call your dad, say, I want to get married.
Yes, yeah.
Do not allow that desire or that satanic whisper to tell you take this path.
Yes,
because this is not what the Ahl Bayt want from you, Habibi.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I know a lot of cases of young guys, 15, 16 even, who are telling their parents, I want to get married. Parent will get the gist. if they're a good parent, they'll understand what they mean by that. Because no 15-year-old in Western society wants to get married because they want to have kids and raise, you know, families. It's probably not normal, but they'll get the gist. And a good son or a good daughter will do that. They'll say, look, I want to settle down. And a good parent will get the gist of that. Look, at the end of the day, guys, wherever you're listening from, you might be completely against it. You might be completely in favor of it. You may think that it was there in the time of the Holy Prophet and now it doesn't have any relevance in this day and age. You may say it was there in the time of the Holy Prophet and therefore it needs a relevance today. Whatever your opinion is, honestly, that's good, you know, but continue to research and don't, you know, don't take our word as gospel, like the Sayyid said as well, because we might influence you. So our intention is not to sway you in any way. However, we do want to caution you and make sure that no one's abusing this particular act. And more so when you hear about it from friends or in school or in your community, make sure that it's spoken about with a level of respect and etiquette, because at the end of the day, anything which is Sunnah of Rasulullah is blessed in the sense that Rasulullah has introduced something, because of course we know in Surah An-Nisa verse 24, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds the people and tells the people that you can partake in Mut'ah, which is of course which is the argument a lot of the Shia community use. So remember that it has a basis, and therefore it cannot be even spoken about in a too much of a derogatory manner. You can discuss things in an academic setting in the right context with the right people, but never insult someone, because everyone inshallah is on their own journey. There's a lot of people who've made mistakes in the past, sisters and brothers. If you are amongst that crowd, guys, don't worry about it. You know, you don't need to blame yourself. We had a message a few months ago on Instagram from a sister who basically said that they've made mistakes in the past and they feel like they will never be forgiven. Guys, if you are listening, if that sister is listening, do not be too hard on yourself. We've just come out the month of Shahr Ramadan. Inshallah, all your sins are forgiven. You know, your slate is clean, inshallah, as they say. So don't be hard on yourself. And if you're a brother and you're in that phase, you're talking to a girl, and we can speak to the brothers, obviously, because we're boys, but, you know, think twice. If you're a young sister, especially, I'm going to read out, sorry, Sid, because I know we're coming to the end, but I'm going to read out a message from a sister who said we can share this message without naming her, of course. She says, Assalamu alaikum, I think you have the perfect platform to address how the practice of Mut'ah has been misused predominantly by men. They use it to take advantage of younger girls sometimes who get swayed by emotions and false promises. So if you accomplish just one thing from the discussion, please let it serve as a warning to the younger female audience that if a guy asks you to do Mut'ah without the permission of your wali or your representative, you are, and if you are not someone who's engaged in relations before, this is a huge red cape that this man is wearing. Please and thank you. Now, obviously, you know, we talk to both the brothers and the sisters, so think twice. If you're young or if you're old, inshallah khair, you'll be all right. You're not going to die. You're not going to suffer that bad. You can wait some time before you find the right person for you in the long term, inshallah, and guidance will be there always.
Inshallah, and thanks to the sister for sending that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I know there's been so much other people that have
hundreds
contributed,
and
hopefully we've touched on what they feel is, shall we say, beneficial to them.
Right.
Best if I can add a bit further,
to
the conversation we were having with that Sayyid I mentioned a bit earlier, where he was like, for example, you know, there are times where temporary marriage works, and it's important that you sort of not abuse it, understand it, and seek guidance from it before you undertake it. However, the best examples where temporary marriage can come in force, where you can say, for example, I am ready for temporary marriage, is, for example, you are a divorcee. You have children. You have struggled for years to get married. You haven't found the right spouse that's willing to take on, as some men call it these days, your baggage. It's children at the end of the day. So, for example, they have difficulties there. So go seek guidance. For example, what alternatives do you have? For example, having someone who can help provide you, someone who can help you around the home, etc. So that was one example. The other example that he gave, for example, he said, which I found very interesting, he said, there are certain times where, for example, you know, back home, shall we say, possibly in the Middle East, for example, Gulf countries, etc., they have maids and servants in their homes. So, for example, where they don't want, for example, any haram from a conversation to take place, they will perform this temporary marriage. I'm not saying do this. I'm just sharing what I learned from the Sayyid.
Right.
And another thing, he was like, for example, some people have injuries, and these are life-changing injuries. And at times, there are only certain doctors from the opposite gender who can sort out your injury. And that requires sometimes situations such as up-close physiotherapy. So there are certain scenarios where this is allowed. However, you have to stipulate in your contract that this is what is the purpose of the...
And when you mention Mut'ah, and I have to say this as well, we're not just talking about sexual relationships.
No, there is so much.
Like you mentioned about the case of a doctor and a patient.
Yeah.
Or for example, in those days, someone who had maids or slaves in their house in the olden days. So yeah, it could be.
So this is like where it was used, like where the scholars were our jurists.
Sure.
So say for example, this
obviously,
is where...
but when we talk about it, obviously, contemporarily, a lot of people talk about it in terms of having relations with other girls or the other opposite gender. Inshallah khair, I hope it's been helpful, and of course we just want to reiterate that we purely just have a good niyyah when we're recording this. We don't want to offend anyone, so please forgive us if we have. That truly was not our intention. Say Muslim, anything to add before we wrap up?
No, all good.
Yeah, Sayed Ali.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, look, if you are looking, or for example interested in the subject, Ahmed mentioned earlier, do not take us as gospel.
Yeah.
Please find all the Islamic laws,
so much stuff.
all the Ahkam, what's permissible.
Stanis Rasala has a lot on it. And he's my Marje. And alislam.org has a lot on it. There's a lot on du'as.org about finding the right partner and the right spouse in for example, different ad'iyah or different du'as from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. There's a lot in terms of finding a partner. And even, for example, to be honest, in Islam, we've got guidance about how to control yourself. If you're a guy, at least I know as a guy, when we're in our younger years, what we used to be told and taught, how to control yourself and how to resist temptation.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can be done. And to be honest, there's even a movement in the Western world. But maybe one day we'll get into this in the conversation of masculinity, which I think is another discussion.
Yeah, indeed. And just remember, Mut'ah is not the norm. The norm is permanent marriage, inshallah. And the beautiful
Subscribe to After Maghrib.
Yeah.
Before we go, should we just go through some of the influences that people have brought up a few times that we should follow rather than...
but don't know. By the way, we don't know if these influences are all...
I've gone through them and I've picked some of them.
So you've vetted a few, yeah?
Know any of them.
I've picked the ones that have come up more than once and that look interesting. So you got the normal ones: Muhammad Jawad Shamali, Zahra Makki, Zahra Alawi. There's a brother called Muhammad Sha'ir, which his content looks really good. And then the other two is Maj Poetry,
Ahmed Abbas,
which is really nice with his poetry, amazing, and Zayn Speaks with his Ziyara videos.
Zayn Awan.
Yes.
Yeah. He's both good friends.
So
these six came up quite a few times.
And just add some more. Zuhair Husseini Qadi,
beautiful,
great friend of mine from New York. Inshallah, he's committed to join us.
He needs to come on, inshallah.
Yes. Inshallah. And even those who are kind of obviously a bit more well known, Mehdi Hassan as an example, we all look up to him very highly. And so many others, So inshallah khair,
I think
much good content.
I think viewers should find influence from people who can give positive feedback to our life, rather than getting influence from people who we shouldn't be looking up to.
Yeah. Too many joke man out there. Honestly. Ya Allah.
Can I give one recommendation?
Yes.
I made sure I put it as a note here right next to me so I don't forget, because there are some people who are shy to open the subject with their dad, or they're shy to open the subject with their uncle or local imam, or their usual community leader. But you can go online and I can recommend a 4-part series. It's very short. I think each part of the 4 is about 20 to 25 minutes long, and it's by Imam Sayyid Mustafa Al-Qazwini, and he explains to you everything and anything that has got to do with temporary marriage, and it's titled The Permissibility of Temporary Marriage in the Quran and Sunnah. 4-part series on YouTube, easy accessible for everyone, by Sayyid Mustafa Al-Qazwini.
Ahsan Sayyidina, thank you very much. Sayyid Mustafa, as always, and everyone at home, thank you very much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Like I said, it was a long one, so thank you if you're still listening. Hit that subscribe button and keep sending us suggestions. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know who you want to see on the podcast, and inshallah we will be back with you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.